You learned how to take up less space, not suddenly, not in one clear moment. It happened gradually in small adjustments that seemed reasonable at the time. You noticed how rooms changed when you spoke too loudly or when your needs appeared too clearly. Something shifted in the air, a pause, a look, a slight tension that made you aware of yourself. So you began to adjust. You softened your voice. You shortened your sentences. You waited a little longer before speaking. If someone else started talking, you stepped back and let them finish, even if you had not yet said what you meant to say. None of this felt dramatic. It felt like good manners. It felt like consideration. You told yourself that being easy to be around meant knowing when to step aside. Over time, you became skilled at noticing how much space you occupied. The physical space of your body, the space of your words, the space of your attention. You learned to sit in ways that did not spread too far into the room. You learned to fold your hands together, to cross your arms or tuck them close to your sides. Small signals that you were not there to take more than your share. When something mattered to you, you measured it carefully before saying it out loud. You asked yourself if it was necessary, if it might create friction, if it might ask too much from the moment. Often, it felt easier to keep it inside. The room continued without interruption. The conversation moved forward smoothly, and you told yourself that this was a sign that you had handled the moment well. You were being thoughtful. You were being considerate. You were making things easier for everyone. Slowly, almost without noticing, this became the way you entered every situation. You watched first. You measured the atmosphere. You adjusted yourself so you would not disrupt the balance that already existed. If something in you wanted more attention, more room, more voice, you reduced it just enough to keep the space comfortable. You learned how to become smaller without disappearing entirely. Present, but careful. There, but not taking more than seemed acceptable. And after a while, this way of being began to feel like the natural shape of you. You begin to notice the room before you notice yourself. You listen first. You measure the tone. You look for the place where you can stand without changing the balance that is already there. When you enter a space, you do not arrive fully. You arrive carefully. You look for signals that tell you how much of yourself is welcome. You watch how people speak. You watch how much space they take. You adjust quietly so you do not exceed what the room seems to allow. If someone speaks with certainty, you move slightly back. If someone fills the silence, you let the silence belong to them. You learn that stepping aside keeps the moment smooth. This becomes easier with time. You no longer need to think about it. Your body knows what to do. You sit with your shoulders closer to your body. Your hands stay near each other on the table. When you walk through a narrow place, you turn your body sideways so others can pass first. These movements are small. They are quiet. They do not draw attention. When something inside you wants to speak more clearly, you slow it down. You measure the words before they leave your mouth. You ask yourself if the moment really needs them. Sometimes the answer feels uncertain. In those moments, you say less. You tell yourself that this is consideration. You tell yourself that it makes you easier to be around. The room stays calm. The conversation continues without friction. That feels like the right outcome. Over time, the habit settles deeper into the way you move. You begin to expect less space for yourself. not as a decision, more like a quiet adjustment that keeps the atmosphere steady. When chairs are arranged around a table, you choose the place that sits slightly outside the center. When voices overlap, you allow yours to fall away. When someone else reaches for the same object, you pull your hand back and let them take it. The moment stays smooth. People rarely notice these small choices. They do not see the calculation that happens before you speak. They do not see the moment when you fold your thoughts inward. From the outside, everything looks natural. You are present. You are calm. You are easy to include. Inside, there is a constant awareness of the space around you. You watch it. You respect it. You reduce yourself slightly so nothing around you feels crowded. The room remains balanced, and the more often you do this, the more familiar it becomes. Your voice grows quieter. Your movements grow smaller. Your presence learns how to fit inside the edges of the moment. Not absent, just careful, just a little less. You become used to measuring yourself. It happens quietly. You begin to notice how much space your body takes, how far your arms move when you speak, how long your voice stays in the air after you finish a sentence. You start to reduce these things, not all at once, a little at a time. Your hands stay closer to your body. Your shoulders fold slightly inward. When you sit, you keep your knees closer together. You choose the edge of the chair instead of leaning back into it. These choices feel small. They feel careful. They do not draw attention. In a room with other people, you look first at where everyone else is. You study the balance that already exists. If someone fills the space with their voice, you let it stay that way. If someone spreads their arms across the table, you pull your elbows closer to your sides. The room stays comfortable. When you speak, you watch the reactions around you. A pause, a shift in posture, a change in someone's expression. Even small signals feel important. If something changes in the air, you adjust yourself quickly. Your sentence becomes shorter. Your voice becomes softer. You leave space for someone else to speak. Sometimes you stop speaking altogether. The moment moves on smoothly. No one feels interrupted. No one needs to react. You tell yourself that this is the right way to handle the moment. There is a quiet satisfaction in it. The room stays calm. Nothing becomes tense. You are still present, but the atmosphere remains easy. Over time, this way of moving becomes familiar. Your body learns it without thinking. You reach for objects with smaller movements. You hold your cup close to the table. When you place something down, you do it gently so the sound does not travel across the room. Your presence becomes softer. You notice how little space you can occupy while still remaining there. You notice how the room continues around you without needing to adjust. This feels like success. From the outside, nothing looks unusual. You are calm. You are attentive. You are someone who fits easily into the space around you. People rarely comment on it. There is nothing obvious to notice. Inside, you are still aware of the space at all times. You feel the edges of it. You keep yourself within them. If something inside you wants to expand, to speak longer, to move more freely, to take a little more room, you feel the impulse and then gently reduce it. The moment stays balanced. The room remains comfortable, and you stay where you are, present but contained, careful not to extend beyond the space that seems available. The adjustment becomes so familiar that you no longer experience it as effort. It simply becomes the way you exist in the room. Not absent, not invisible, just slightly smaller than you might otherwise be. You carry this way of moving with you without thinking about it very much. It sits quietly inside the way you enter rooms, the way you choose where to sit, the way your voice settles when you begin to speak. Nothing in you announces it as a rule. It simply feels like the most natural way to exist among other people. You notice space. You notice how easily it fills when someone else steps forward. You notice how quickly it becomes calm again when you step slightly back. So you keep doing what has always worked. You stay present. You listen carefully. You adjust your posture so you do not interrupt the balance that already exists in the room. There is something steady about it. The moment moves smoothly. Conversations continue without friction. No one has to shift in their chair or change the direction of the discussion because of something you said too strongly. Everything remains easy. From the outside, nothing unusual is visible. You are attentive. You are thoughtful. You are someone who fits comfortably into the space around you. People experience you as calm, as someone who does not demand much, someone who moves gently through the room. You rarely question it. This way of being has been with you long enough that it feels like part of your shape. When you enter a space, you naturally fold your presence into it. You take what is available and leave the rest untouched. Your hands stay close to your body. Your words arrive softly. Your movements remain careful. It keeps the moment smooth. Sometimes you notice how quietly you do this. A small movement of the chair. A sentence that ends earlier than it might have. A thought that stays unspoken. The room continues around you. Nothing stops. Nothing shifts dramatically. The moment carries on as if everything is exactly where it should be. And you remain there inside it, not hidden, not entirely absent, just slightly reduced, slightly contained, slightly smaller than the full space you could occupy. It once helped things stay calm. It once made the room easier to move through. And so the pattern remains where it has always been. A quiet adjustment in how you exist beside other people. Not something you explain, just the shape your presence learned to take.